radio show the other night how you've seen some similarities in David Montgomery and Kareem Hunt. What are some of the things you see in both of them?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is just their maturity and being ready to play at an early age. David had to do that last year for us, kind of in a really similar role that Kareem did. We had David Fluell in Kareem's freshman year, and David got dinged up kind of in the midpoint of the season. Kareem was actually playing on the scout team, to be honest with you, the first five games of the season. And then we decided to put him in, and David kind of in that same boat a little bit. So, I think their maturity and understanding how to dictate the pace of the game at a young age is really, really big. Those guys both have the ability to do that. I've said David's kind of a all-around back, Kareem kind of elite speed, that kind of came with that power as well. So it's kind of unique to see both of those guys, and I think they both have the same mindset too. They're both really driven to be elite, and those are the neat things to see from two guys that we've had the opportunity to work with.
How important is it going to be to get David into a rhythm on Saturday?
Well, shoot, I think the whole team got to get into a rhythm in this game. You got to find ways to offensively, take what the defense gives you at times and do a really good job of just continuing to move the change. We got out of rhythm as an offense early in the game, obviously against you and I, and that it's tough. It's tough to play good offense that way. So whether it's David or whether it's Jacob or whether it's our entire team, we got to get into a good rhythm offensively early in the game, and that means having success on third downs and continuing drives for sure.
John talked to us yesterday about keeping the defense simple. What does that afford your guys in the game on Saturday?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you got to play fast, and they're going to play fast because one of the things that they do a great job of on both sides of the ball is they are simple, and I think they're simple to the point where they let their kids play with a lot of speed and knowledge of what they're doing, and we have to be the same way. I think once you try to make mistakes or you try to create something and then all of a sudden mistakes happen, they have the ability to make big plays from that. And so I think it's our ability to know where we're supposed to be defensively, be gap sound, and be really sound when we go and get to the football. Those are when we're playing our best on defense, and we're going to have to do that obviously for 4 quarters.
Joel said he graded, I think, a 78 out of 84. What kind of, how do you break down the, grading scale when it comes to linebackers?
Well, we grade every snap of a game and then, give a percentage grade. I think what we saw from Joel was Joel settling in after the first quarter of the game. I think a lot of emotions. I think a guy that's playing a position for the first time in his career, and you saw him really settle into the game. And by the second, third, fourth quarter, he did some really great things. Obviously, we talked about Willie's play. Joel's kind of the catalyst of that. But I just, Joel's an emotional kid and plays with everything he's got. And so, I think all of us would have been the same situation Joel was, and I thought he did a phenomenal job in the game, really adjusting. And I think you'll just continue to see him get better and better.
How do you break down the points for something like that?
Yeah, pretty simple. I think we're all similar in how we grade guys across the board, and plus or minus on what your job and responsibility was, and then talk a little bit about technique and certainly critical errors or critical pluses that you could have in the game. So we're pretty standard in that operation.
I know you said the interior of the D line needs to step up, especially in this type of game. Is Jamal, has he looked better at practice out there?
Yeah, I'd say still kind of day to day in his operations, he's certainly practiced, which has been real positive for us. Just a matter of where he's at by the time we get to Saturday will be really, really important. But it'd be great to have that body, and certainly his ability to help us on the defensive line and be able to have fresh bodies will be huge for us.
But some of your depth guys at this point, like Camilo being a late arrival, and Matt, Leo, and all that they continue to progress to the point where they can get more reps?
Well, you hope so. I think that's the biggest thing for us, and that's why practice is so important, because we know we're going to need those guys as the season continues, and we're going to need them as soon as obviously this week we're a game that those defensive line bodies are going to be really, really important, because the more guys you can roll into play, the fresher you got a chance to be. And certainly with what they do offensively, maybe it's not so much the tempo of which they do in terms of how many plays they run, but it's the style of play. I think the more fresh you can be, the better we're going to be.
You talked about the offensive line a little bit after the game. What's the growth of that group been based on what expectations maybe you had in some of the new pieces that you had to plug in?
Yeah, I think there's been exceptional growth. And again, does that mean where we're at yet? No, or where we want to be, we're not. But I think that group's going to have a great challenge. You're talking about one of the best front sevens we'll play all year this year coming into this next football game. And so I think we'll see where we're at, and where we want to be is really, really important for our success. But I thought that group as a whole, obviously Jake Campos, even though he's not a new guy, boy, that's a guy that hasn't played a lot of football, in the last year and a half. So, you're almost like a fresh body there. Julian's playing a new position, and then all those other guys are really first-time starters. So, I think those guys just continue to grow together and work together, even though they had spring practice, have had a lot of fall camp together. Now you get under the lights and you get to see yourself. But I thought in the game they did some really positive things. I thought pass protection-wise was certainly positive. I thought at times really started to take over the game in the running game, which we haven't really done here. So that was great to see. But again, you're talking about a total different challenge this week in a really dynamic front seven.
Talking about growth last year to this year, you get these first two matchups again, same deal. Biggest differences going into these games this year as opposed to going into year one?
Oh, I think the biggest difference for us is just our process and how we prepare for games. It's the maturity and the mentality that is just light years compared to where we were a year ago to where we are today. And I think a lot of that goes with expectations from what our young men in our program can expect from myself and our staff to now, us demanding those expectations from them. And I think that's the biggest growth process of anything. And then, we're not even talking scheme. I think you've had a whole year and a half in very similar style schemes on both sides of the ball, and I think that's been a huge help as well.
Kirk said yesterday that in year two for you is way ahead of year two for him at his program. What do you think of that, and do you agree with his assessment?
Well, I probably don't know well enough to make a comment on what their year two looked like, other than, from afar, having a tremendous amount of respect for Coach Ferentz and how he's built that program, what they've done to sustain success, in my opinion. I think it's a great beacon for any young coach out there. But I know about us, and I know we've still got a lot of work to do in year two for us. But we're really excited about what our opportunities are in terms of continuing to get better week in and week out, continue to understand process, and we're fortunate, obviously to have some great guys, some great senior class that certainly helped us, speed that process up a little bit for us.
Carson Mensing was a guy that was already committed when the staff got here,
Yeah.
but what kind of growth have you seen from him, and was there a light bulb moment for him where things started to click to help him put in the position he is now?
I just think Carson's a guy that, it was my first, to be honest with you, it was my second visit when I got the job. I remember Friday night I went up and watched him play basketball, and he was committed. I went and saw him play a basketball game, and I think the thing about Carson that I always loved, especially when I first went and saw him play basketball, he was a great competitor. Now he wasn't a great basketball player, but he was a really good competitor that night, and I really, really appreciated that from him. And I think that's everything you get from Carson is everything he has every day. And I think that's really allowed him, that's kind of our mentality, it's what we've tried to preach here in our program, and he's been able to embody that, and I think you've just seen him really flourish in our program in a year and a half. And again, you're talking about a guy playing Mike linebacker and playing running back that's trying to understand how to play defensive end with great consistency. But I'm really proud of Carson. I really am. You go out to practice every day, he's the same guy every day, and obviously it's why he's been able to move up the depth chart and certainly get some opportunities to showcase what he can do.
Who was the first guy?
The first guy is Colin Newell, so literally day one, and I went over to Ames High School. I had about a 10-minute break and went in there to see him, and I'll tell you, I'm sure glad I did, because he's got a chance to be really special down the road too.
McEnroe Alexander, sorry, is that a
Yeah,
indefinite situation?
I don't know if it's indefinite. Okay. I don't know if that's fair, but I think the fairness would be to say that he will not be available for this football game, and then we'll reevaluate that after the game.
You talked about David's elite preparation, the way he goes about it on and off the field. How does he do that with the intensity that he does? It also carries over the games, but he doesn't seem to get too hyped. He doesn't seem to rattle.
Yeah, I think that's where that maturity piece is really big. I think some guys, and you hit the nail on the head, to be honest with you, some guys have the ability to have great work ethic. They get so high emotionally that there's highs and lows, where David's got that maturity that almost understand when I need to be high, when I can save it and reserve, but he's always working at max capacity, and that's a special trait, and those are what the elite players, and sometimes I think even the elite people, have that trait to know how to use that and when to be it, but able to be so controlled during that whole action, and a great observation.
I was 19-1 since the start of 2015 when they score first. How important is it for you guys to not fall in that hole right away?
Well, boy, that's a good stat to know. I think at the end of it, for us, it is about playing 4 really good quarters. And this is a team that knows how to win. It's a team that's had success. It's got a lot of guys back. It's got some really good leadership. And it's going to be a great test for us to play 4 quarters. And if we're going to put ourselves in position to go win the game, we're going to have to play 4 great quarters. And it starts with 1. So last year we couldn't even get 1 out of the gate, but it starts with 1, and we just got to carry out from there. But I think that all goes into our preparation, our detail for sure.
When opposing teams are here, they kind of have to walk through tailgates a little bit to get to the stadium. What was it like last year at Kinnick? Or did you guys have to walk through any tailgates or any opposing fans when you walked in?
Gosh, that's a great question, and I don't even know if I remember that. I do remember the crowd. I thought, awesome environment, awesome crowd. I think there was lighters or something going off throughout the game, which was pretty cool. But or whatever the laser light show was, maybe it was a scoreboard. But it was a situation where I thought, great environment.
I was just curious if you guys got heckled at all on your way into Kinnick last year.
I don't remember, but I'm sure I was getting heckled, and the rest of us were as well.
All right, Coach. Thank you.